Okay, we are live. Baby, I gotta send a text message real quick though here.
Okay. Let's see if I can. My example was I talked about like a CEO who he had been a CEO for a long time. He didn't want to take any chances and risk anything in his company, and so he just turned down new things because he was a creature of old habit. And then his employees weren't very happy because he was too familiar and he wasn't listening them. And so I just did, I don't even know what it's called. Oh my gosh. I did familiarity.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the word.
Awesome. I did ambiguity.
Of course.
For a hiring agent. Went for the easy one. Mine is, as a hiring agent, I attempt to reward employees based on experience, time of employment, work quality, or other qualifications. However, many of the qualifiers are ambiguous. This allows bias or ambiguity to come into the hiring process. I do not intentionally allow this. However, when an applicant has great communication skills or social skills, there are a few examples that are not qualifiers. I am more tempted to hire them.
So was that your example at an interview or at a social, or was that at?
I just made it up. But similar thing happened during an interview probably 6 months ago.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna read mine. Mine says, Jim is a senior partner at a small firm located here in Rexburg. The biggest client is Brolums. Jim is working on the audit report and comes across information that is very unfavorable for Brolums. Bias starts to creep in because of the relationship of the two entities. Because Brolums provides almost 50% of the firm's revenue, attachment brings bias into this report.
I like that.
There you go.
Because they have a relationship and they're you're doing it. I don't know if that's really good or not, but
no, I like it.
It's close to home.
It's an easy one. Short, sweet, to the point.
Doesn't matter to me. We can do any of them.
Okay, send me yours when you send me the link.
Okay. So
what's our explanation
question
of the example?
Or
you just want to do the question first?
Let's
do the question first. Based on his example, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Based on this example,
based on
I
this
made it to the party.
This looks great. I love the assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
We're live. Just to let you know.
We're live.
Paragraphs, what?
Watch some videos.
3 sentences, right?
Yeah,
That's all we have to do.
I just sent you the.
Wait.
Okay.
We're supposed to discuss the article we read.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're supposed to make a paragraph of the key point that we learned as a group from that article.
Oh, we are?
Paragraph is what, 3 sentences, right?
Yeah. What article are you talking about?
At least in elementary school.
There is an article that was on there.
Did you not read it?
For the prep.
I'm confused.
There's one in the prep section. I didn't see where it says you have to create
we have to write something about it?
I didn't see that it said
we specifically individually don't, but as a group, that's our group assignment.
Oh.
It is? I didn't see that.
Yeah, where does it say that?
Under group assignment.
Well, let me look at that because I automatically jump to the same format that I do every week.
Me too.
Yeah, it's not like that.
The amicus case this week, you don't have to do a
You're
case.
here.
You just have to watch some presentations, and that's it. That's what I thought you were referring to.
No.
Group activity in your group discussion will be a little different this week. Thanks. Instead of creating an exam question, your group should meet for 1 hour to discuss the 1 hour.
We don't have to meet for an hour.
To discuss the article you read. First, discuss each of your group members' examples. What situations did you identify where bias exists outside of the auditing examples in your reading? How big of an issue is bias in every ethical situation? Now have a more general discussion about the article you read.
starting.
Choose some of the
Good thing
following
you got here when you
questions
did.
as a guide.
Yeah.
Okay. I can read the questions if you want.
That would be great.
It says the title of this unit is ethics, but according to the article you just read, at least in the case of auditors, teaching auditors about ethics will not have an impact on bias. The authors suggest education that helps auditors understand the unconscious errors that make and the reasons they make them. For business students and others who will not be auditors, what kind of education, if any, would help business professionals avoid bias? It is pointless. Oh, is it pointless? Because the thing with auditors is it's very biased because you can just go in there, they can hand you a ton of cash and say, write us a good report.
Or your job could be at risk if they don't like what you did.
Yeah.
They're like, you didn't improve our profits. You actually made us pay more because we screwed up. Then the business might fire that auditing company.
Mm.
So, and then if your company's small enough, it's a big contract, you'll get screwed over too. They'll probably fire you.
And then you lose a lot of the revenue that big contract generates for you. That's keeping you in business. Well, I wrote that anyway.
Yeah. And the next one is the author suggests that the status quo, the universally accepted practice in the United States of how audit firms are hired and paid and worked with the companies they audit results in bad audits. Do you agree? Why do you think when Congress passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, they weren't more radical reforms like the ones suggested by the author? Basically, Sarbanes-Oxley Act is just it's guidelines created that they have to follow, certain guidelines that they have to follow, but they're so loose that you can do pretty much whatever you want.
Well, I mean, it was like this, and then that act brought it like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does. There's still room, but it restricted and tightened down.
Yeah, tighten it a
on
little
accountants
bit, yeah.
and auditors. But I mean, it's still. I mean, nothing's gonna be. It's gonna change. You know what I mean?
Perfect, yeah. And then the next one says this article is specifically about auditors, but most of the studies are about human nature in general,
Yeah.
and a few are specifically about lawsuits. Bias that was discovered for plaintiffs and defendants leads to a flawed legal system. Why or why not?
Read that one more time. The last part.
Do you think that the bias was discovered for plaintiffs and defendants leads to a flawed legal system? Why or why not?
That's interesting. But like the article said, bias is invisible, and I think it's just like there's no way. I don't know. Maybe there's no way you're gonna be completely 100% unbiased.
Yeah, there's almost no way.
Yeah, that's what I think, and I really liked like.
Unless you're doing statistics and you can do a non-biased.
Yeah, exactly.
statistical
Like unless the numbers can totally
analysis.
100% prove.
But even the study to get those numbers is biased.
Yeah, and they
so-
try to eliminate bias. But they had one of those things where the person was like, those like different, like the seller and the buyer both developed audit reports, developed the worth of the company. And the seller thought it was a lot higher, the buyer thought it was a lot less. And then they went back to it, and they just they eliminated all. They said, hey, you're no longer a seller or a buyer. Basically, whoever gets the closest to the actual evaluation of the company. And the sellers who were sellers before were actually still higher in their evaluation.
Mhm.
And it said that just because once they've had bias, it's hard to take bias back.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
It kind of
It's in
blows my
everything in
mind.
our
Yeah.
lives.
Everything. Like, all of our decisions have.
So I don't think it's a system. I think it's just. I think all the systems are flawed technically. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing's going to be
Nothing's
perfect.
yeah.
Is that what we want to say?
And the next question
we just
says,
discussed
since
it.
lawyers are advocates for their clients, how much do you think lawyers are affected by bias? Does this create a flawed system?
See, that's
Kind of the same
that's
question.
the thing. Like, I mean, if you're gonna make money off something, you're gonna be more biased to make more money,
Mhm.
and it's just gonna be subconscious. Catch myself doing it sometimes. Like if I'm like trying to agree on like a roommate responsibilities or something, I try and make it to where I don't have to do as much, and then like I catch myself. I'm like, well, that's not fair. like I'm doing way less than he is, but I'm reasoning in my head that I think I'm doing more. You know, it's just we do that consciously.
Like today, my roommate is also my home teaching companion. He's like, hey, we should get something for our home teaching. He's like, okay, sounds good. And he's like, we could get a card and some chocolates. Which one do you want to get? And most people are like, oh, I don't care, because they want the other person to choose and be nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, because I can get a $2 card and it will be cheap, and you can buy the $10 candy.
Exactly.
Because if I go to buy candy, I don't know what she likes, so I'm gonna get chocolate and gummies, and then it's gonna be more expensive.
Exactly.
Maybe that's just me more overanalyzing everything, but
I did the same thing though. What can I do the quickest, most efficient, and for the cheapest?
Yeah.
But with all right quality.
But I don't care about anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to be cheap. You know, like.
I'm biased to myself.
Anything that involves anyone, they're going to have some sort of bias that's going to sway them one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, like, we'll think of discussing this in economics. Think of politicians, dude. They just trying to get elected. They're not trying to fix the economy. They're just trying to make sure people are elected.
Yeah,
like this stuff on the politicians, or they're already biased on whatever they're going to do, whatever that is pressed upon them that the people want to do. To stay elected.
Yeah.
It says, if you're an accounting major, what will you do about what you learned from reading this article?
I will not compromise my ethics.
I'll seek not to compromise.
I will seek not. I will do everything I can.
I'll seek not to be biased.
Perfect. Yeah, but.
And then it says, when your group is finished with the discussion, take just 5 to 10 minutes to write a paragraph telling what was the most important or interesting insight your group gained from the discussion. Have one group member submit your paragraph.
Do we have to record this discussion?
Yeah.
It says we do? Okay. I just want to make sure. Glad for you to show up, Jordan.
Make sure he's on there.
I'm assuming.
What I really like about this article is like, it says like, why good accountants do bad audits. I was like, well, usually good accountants don't do bad audits, and like their definition of bad is just that they have bias, and it's just like it's not really like it's like a bad thing. It's just it happens, and like you want to figure out how to like limit that
to minimize it. Yeah, exactly. Like I really like what it's talked about with attachment. That's what I wrote my example on. It's just like if you're with like if you're
all in the paragraph.
I know. I just thought that's something that I really like from the article. Is it just like bias is going to be in everything, and it's hard to get rid of bias once it's happened.
Yeah,
you just got to minimize
can't take it back.
Yeah,
it's like once it's done, it's done.
It's in every part of the world.
And I also think that there's bias, but I think that there's a reason why we have that companies like do internal audits, and they do do external audits. They like have another company come in. So like they're doing internal audits. They want their company to look really good. Another company comes in and they're just like, well, actually, you know, it's just I think like more heads the better, more outside perspective.
Limits bias.
Yeah. I mean that's
as much as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, let's write a paragraph. You can stop.
What did you think, Jordan?
What was your example? What did you think?
Computers did. But okay.
What does your ring say first? That one right there.
It's TSAM. That's my mission.
It says what?
TSAM. TSAM. Texas San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
So I was trying to get a mission.
I was like, Tanzania? We have missionaries in Tanzania. Okay.
Texas.
Just trying to prolong this so it looks like it's longer. When he clicks on it, it's like 30 minutes. So it
these guys actually did something.
Yeah.
See, mine was about like, I think I wrote about business. Like my example is like if this guy was like the chief controller of business, right? You guys know what chief controller is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like chief controller of business, and like he worked closely with the CEO. And so like he's gonna come to the controller for like his opinion, you know, like, oh, on expenditures, spending, everything like that for the business, what's appropriate. He's like, but then he notices that the CEO doesn't like when he says we need to, avoid spending or pull back expenditures, cut costs. And so then he feels the pressure to, I guess, do things out of the CEO's interest rather than what is
Best for your
appropriate for the business, Yeah. So, because he's fearful, obviously, because he's his boss.
Because of the relationship they have.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you did? You did the
Right.
attachment.
I worded it really nicely, but then
It's okay.
I didn't realize I was dead, so.
Anyone else like his example that he did for this?
For the teachers thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good actually. That's 100% true.
I was like, yeah. Like I used to go into my physics professor's class like all the time.
Oh, I know.
And at the end of the semester, I had like a 93.4. So an A was a 94. And I just emailed him. I was like, hey, like, can I get it bumped up? And it's like, well, you do really good in the class, and and you're a really good kid, so I'll bump you up. And then another kid tried to do it, and he didn't get it. I was just like, that's some bias right there. But
Yeah.
like,
I'm not complaining.
but I'm not
Thumbs up.
complaining. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we gotta write this article. Let's get this done.
Okay.
Who
Who wants to write it?
I'll be really slow, so if you want me to write it, I can write it. But
I would do this.
it'll take a while.
Let me just put my laptop away.
I can type it.
Yeah.
It'll just be slow.
It's okay.
I can type the numbers with the number pad really fast.
Yeah.
On the other side of the keyboard.
So you're going to be a horrible accountant.
Yeah, horrible. Dude.
Wait, you type slow, you said?
I can type these really
Oh,
fast.
do you have it?
But this,
I'll type it up and I'll
I,
just send it to
I
you.
can do this.
How
does that work?
Super
And you can
slow.
just submit
That
it.
was my mistakes.
You're going tax.
So what does the question
Yeah.
say? What exactly does it say?
It says,
Just like share them our most important.
yeah,
Just the
it
most important
says,
things that we learned.
when your group is finished with discussion, take just 5 to 10 minutes to write a paragraph telling what was the most important or interesting insight your group gained from the discussion. We could talk about how there's bias in
I just wanna,
everything.
I want to do like bullet points, but it has to be a paragraph.
We could talk about how there's bias in everything.
I just want to say, I very much appreciate the example, especially because of how close that is.
Yeah.
What's like the biggest thing? Like everyone, like, what's the biggest thing you took out of this? Because like,
Well, I think you guys made a really good point when you said like, well, how do good accountants do like bad auditing? Like they're good accountants and they shouldn't do bad auditing, but like there still is the ability for them to do a bad audit if they don't. Like be careful. Okay.
Well, and I think too, it kind of shows like, it's pretty much like the business world too. I mean, it's all based upon opinions and how valuable is your opinion. And
I actually like that. I think we can write a paragraph on like how everything that involves like the business world, so like accounting, business, anything like supply chain management.
Hmm.
It's all about opinion,
Mhm.
and so like whoever's opinion is the most valuable gets paid the most. Like it's not about bias necessarily. It's just whoever does the best job. I think.
Well, yeah, like with supply chain, you have a buyer and a seller. It's like you were saying, they agree on a price. Who determines that price? They pull it out of thin air
Exactly.
lots of times. I mean, yeah, you can say, oh, I have this product and it costs this much, but
We get good
in
stuff.
reality, it's a bias. You're going to be biased to your company. You want to get the best price for your company because if your company does well, you get a big bonus at the end of the year.
Exactly.
I mean, I know me starting out, I'm starting in February. I'm going to be getting a 25% bonus if my department does well. That sounds great.
That sounds terrific.
So the question is, am I going to have keep my integrity and ethics to not
cheat your way.
cheat my way into that bonus or justify
Doing one
little thing
Yeah.
to give me that bonus?
I think the biggest thing I think I learned is just like always like every decision you make, you ask yourself that question, like, am I being biased right now because of the position I'm in?
Mhm.
It's really hard to do, but I think if you question every single time you make a decision, like a big decision, it will eliminate bias. Just like it's still there, but it'll eliminate just a little bit. So I think we can write a paragraph on it.
He's already got one going. One thing
I'm
with,
just gonna send it to you, and then you can.
Dictate.
I think it should be good, honestly.
okay,
Cool.
I'm just gonna send it to you right now, and you can submit it. Then I'll submit that thing here.
Want to read it? You already typed it
Yeah, I
out?
can write it. Yeah.
Quick.
here's type
Well,
the whole time.
I
I don't know if I talked much about what you were saying, but what was my head.
Oh, it's okay.
It works.
As long as there's something.
We're all in the same discussion.
But I'm
It's
gonna
all good.
end this